On this week's episode, Falcon and the Winter Soldier turns a very dark corner. What's up ahead for Star Trek? And we recap WrestleMania. All this and more as we once again delve into the pop culture cosmos. And we're back with another episode of the Pop Culture Cosmos. This is Gerald Glasser from Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and the Lakers Fast Break. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our shows, and if you can, please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Plus, if you can like, share, subscribe, follow, or do anything that you can to support us right here at Pop Culture Cosmos, it is sincerely appreciated. Well, I want to go ahead and let everyone know that Josh Peterson was scheduled to be here today, but unfortunately he could not make it in. I want to go ahead and wish him well. Hope everything's okay, my friend out there. We're truly rooting for you out there. And we also want to go ahead and give a big shout out to Thomas Bennett, who was going to be scheduled on for last week for an interview previewing WrestleMania. He fell ill, couldn't make it in. He was a little bit under the weather. So our thoughts are with you, my friend. I know you got recently out of the hospital this past weekend, so hope you're feeling better, you're up and about, and I hope you'll be able to come on the show real soon as well. But it wouldn't be a Pop Culture Cosmos without a good friend of mine, and I got another great friend, because I seem to have a lot of great friends out there on the intranet. And one of my longtime good friends out there on the internet is a good man indeed. You got to hear him on all the episodes that he's done with me for the Lakers Fast Break and Pop Culture Cosmos, and also what he did previously from Voice from the Underground. I'm sure he's got a slew of things that he's done on the internet, some of which he could be very proud of, and then again some of the stuff with me as well. But it is a good man indeed. You got to check him out, whatever he's doing, anytime he's here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. It is TJ Johnson. And TJ, so glad to have you back on the program again. And thank you for coming on such short notice.
Oh, absolutely, man. I'm grateful that I was able to do so. And I'm grateful that you had thought of me and invited me. I don't know how you keep inviting me on, but I mean, I'm going to take it. I'm not going to say no, but there's got to be better guests out there. You must be really scraping the bottom of the barrel right now, but
no. You're always one of the first I call because your insight, your depth and your knowledge of not only pop culture, your enthusiasm for pop culture, also as well for the Lakers. You know, I got to pop you on for the Lakers as much as I can, but for pop culture, people have been hearing your thoughts over the past few months on Falcon and the Winter Soldier, WandaVision, PlayStation. We've talked about a myriad of things so far in pop culture that have fascinated you. Also, as well, Justice League. We've talked about the apocalypse war and all that. So there's so many things that you like about pop culture, but you're fascinated by it. And I truly love any time that you can come back on. And today's show is going to be something that we're definitely interested in because you actually reached out to me. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to bring you on because I did not sure if I had enough time for you on today's program. Yeah. But it worked out, fortunately, for us today. We are going to be talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Episode 4, which took a very, very dark turn, and we'll explain why. There'll be spoilers coming up. So if you haven't watched it yet, please put us on pause. Let's all pause. And go ahead and hit the play button after you go ahead and watch it because it is a very intriguing episode indeed. Plus, also as well, we're going to be breaking down Night 1 and Night 2 of WrestleMania. Coming up after the break, it'll be John Orlando from the PVD Cast, who is with me to break down Night 1 of WrestleMania. And coming up after the halfway mark, it'll be Noah Ian Fine from Honeyqueen breaking down Night 2 of WrestleMania. A momentous weekend indeed for everyone out there. Just so thankful that we can have live events, and I'm sure the WWE is really excited in this limited capacity, but you know what? From what I saw, from what I've been seeing so far, it looks like they've been having a great time, and of course the matches have been there, and we'll talk about Night 1 and Night 2 coming up on the show. Plus, TJ and I will also be on the back end of the show talking about Star Trek. Why? They recently had on Paramount Plus Star Trek First Contact Day, which is a celebration of the 25th anniversary of the movie Star Trek First Contact, which is among the very best of the Star Trek movies, if you're a Star Trek fan. So I will ask TJ his thoughts on some of the announcements that were made there, some of the extension of some of the series, and if the Star Trek IP is still something people should get excited for at this point in time. But first, my friend, it is Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episode 4. It hit, and it has a lot of people talking. I'm going to tell you right now, that's the first thing I notice, is that when you have a show that clicks with an audience out there, whether it's for good or whether it's for bad, it's something that people are talking about. Last week, everybody was talking about Baron Zemo and his dancing skills. I call it the shaken margarita because it looked like he was shaking a margarita, and he was all over the place. He's actually talked about in interviews how cool it is, that how funny it is that that happened. But I will say that it was something that was very enjoyable and that people were truly getting into it. This week, I guess it's even gone into a darker rhythm, an extenuation of what we had talked about before in episode 2, which was the fact that, John Walker, who is the current Captain America, he's played by Kurt Russell's kid, Walker Russell, I believe.
Walker Russell.
Yeah, and at times he looks like spitting image of his dad. There's times when you see him at certain angles, I'm like, that's Kurt's kid. You just see it, but you see him now, and we talked about in episode 2 about how he had really come to play as far as being sinister, as far as going to a level, as far as still wanting to do good, but in a misguided fashion. And we see that all come to play in episode 4. I know the episode at the beginning started around and centered around Kari Morgenthau, the Flag Smashers, her organization, obviously the search to find her, whether it's the Power Broker or whether it's Falcon Winter Soldier or whether it's Battlestar and Captain America. All these forces seem to try to find where she's located at, but it all centers around the super serum as well.
Yep. That darn super serum, man. You just can't seem to shake it, man.
Exactly.
You can't seem to throw a shoe in a direction without hitting somebody that's got a super serum.
Excuse me, TJ. I'm going to have some super serum right now. Hold on, please. But go ahead. Continue, my friend.
I thought it was interesting. And once you seen that one vial of super soldier serum left, you knew. I mean, we all knew where this was going to go. I don't think anybody who's been paying any kind of attention didn't know what John was about to do. But you see it and you're like, not him. There's anybody that doesn't need any superpowers, any super soldier, anything, it's this guy. And you seen it and you knew it was going to happen. And I don't think I expected it to get as dark as it did, as quickly as it did. That was a quick turn, but I'm sure we'll get into that.
Well, let's go ahead and right now preface it by the search throughout the entire campaign or the entire episode was the search for Kari Morgenthau and her organization, the Flag Smashers, and they finally were able to catch up with her because they knew she had possession of the last 12 bottles of super serum. The last 12 bottles of super serum that we know about, at least right. That was made by the mad scientist who was killed off in episode 3 really quickly. And it looks like, because the mad scientist was working in league with the Power Broker back at Madripoor, and they ended that. So they went over to Europe. They tracked down Kari Morgenthau. They tracked her down as one of her friends who had died from tuberculosis. She had basically passed away from tuberculosis, and they could not save her. So during this process of the funeral, I guess what happened was that I guess what happened was that there was a conversation between Falcon and Kari Morgenthau trying to talk her down, talk her from doing anything more sinister, because she had already started to go ahead and kill people to get her cause up and around, as far as the Global Repatriation Council, I think is the name of the group and organization that they're trying to work against. And basically, it led to a situation where there was a fight, and John Walker kept getting his butt kicked. First, he got his butt kicked by super soldiers from the Flag Smashers. Then, when they confronted, when John Walker and Battlestar got confronted Falcon and Winter Soldier at a hotel room or something. I think it was a flat. I think it was one of Baron Zemo's flats. Baron Zemo's flats with Baron Zemo. They all got their butts kicked by the Dora Milaje, which I thought was a great turn, bringing them into the mix because they have issues with Baron Zemo because he killed King T'Challa way back in Civil War.
King
T'Chaka. Yeah, right. He killed King T'Chaka way back in Civil War. So it's all very interesting how this all is layered in there. But he got his butt kicked again and could not deal with it. You could see the anger rising. And the fact is that there was a situation, it all led to them catching up to Kari Morgenthau and the Flag Smashers, confronting them. She tried to get away. Baron Zemo, in the middle of it again, not doing the shaken margarita this time, but in the middle of it all again, he went ahead and he caught up with her, shot at Kari Morgenthau. She dropped and destroyed or cracked 11 of the. She dropped the vials. She dropped all 12 vials, which is amazing how all 12 just fall out of that fanny pack. But anyways, need I digress? Didn't have the Rocks fanny pack. If you had the Rocks fanny pack from the
definitely didn't have the Rocks fanny.
Yeah, pack. It would have been. That would have held nicely. But that's all over the floor. Baron Zemo smashes every one of them. He thinks, but then he gets hit by the shield and gets knocked out by John Walker, who spies one lonely vial sitting in between a couple of water bottles, and he decides to keep it for his good use. And we didn't know if he would take it or not, but he has a conversation with Battlestar. And that's, I think, was the key as far as to what his future plans lie.
If you didn't know he was going to take that, I mean, I appreciate you setting the table. That was great. But if you didn't know he was going to take that serum for himself, you haven't been paying attention. Now,
okay, the one thing we can't say, I know he was going to take it. You can tell he was going to. You can tell from number one.
Oh yeah, the one thing I can tell you is that if you learn the comic history of John Walker, you know that he actually got his powers a lot sooner than he did in this show. So we knew that was going to happen. Now, people really don't like John Walker, and for good reason. I'm not going to pretend that he's a very, very lovable Captain America, considering the fact that he's following up Chris Evans, who is the heart and soul of one of the heart and souls of the MCU. Yeah. So people already just don't like him, and all the memes have shown that they don't like him. And here's why I think we need to give him a little bit of slack, just a little bit. And I'm going to empathize with him for a second. That is a lofty, lofty title to live up to. A lofty title to live up to Captain America. This man has stood against Thanos, has stood against different tyrannies, and has fought in different wars. And John Walker is no slouch on his own. Let's be clear. He's already proven himself on the battlefield of war as well. But living up to Captain America standards is very, very. It has to be. I mean, I can't say I know for certain because I've never done it, but I'd have to imagine it's very, very difficult. And to not be a super soldier on top of that, and to be getting into these fights and to already be looking to try to do right. I think he genuinely wanted to do the right thing. I think he genuinely wants to exceed these expectations and this pressure that's put on him to be Captain America. So I think his intentions, at least the MCU is very good at painting different strokes for characters that we think are one-dimensional. We think characters have this one shade, and Marvel has been masterful, if you will, for lack of a better term, in creating these broad strokes, or these more defined strokes, I should say, not broad, but defined strokes, and giving you real nuance to these characters. So I think John Walker is really trying at first to do the right thing, and he realizes he's just a man. And he doesn't have the training that Captain America had. He doesn't have the abilities that Captain America did. And I think it all kind of really came to a head as he was getting frustrated with the Carly situation. And when Falcon was in there trying to do his thing and he was just getting impatient, you can see this was just, it was going to boil over. It was going to get ugly. And you felt the tension rising. I think that's another great thing that Marvel is really doing with these series, is that they've got this way of building this pressure, building this tension. And they're doing a really great job at that. So you can see the frustration mounting. You can see his being just ready to go. He's already amped up. He's fired up. He's ready. He's got to try to bottle that beast, and he's having a hard time doing that. And of course, Sam is making progress, and he's getting through to her. And all of a sudden, he's like, "All right, time's up. Nope, you're under arrest," and starts the domino effect. And the fun part was, I seen this meme on the internet the other day, and I immediately thought of that episode when he put his hand on the Dora Milaje. I can't think of the person from the Dora Milaje, but when he put his hand on her shoulder and said, "All right, that's enough," you knew at that moment he messed up. You knew at that moment that he was going to get his feelings and his butt kicked. The second he put his hand on her shoulder, it was a done deal. So, obviously that fight ensues, and he gets handled, and you got super soldiers, and he was vastly underpowered and desperate to try to figure something out. So he takes the serum, and of course, he takes it off screen. We don't know he's taking the serum, so it gives us a chance to kind of be like, well, maybe he didn't take it, maybe he did take it. But then you see him throw that shield, and you see it get lodged into the wall. Now,
and you see him bend that pipe.
And you see him bend the pipe. And it's like, okay, he's amped up on super soldier serum. He took it. He took the triple S. So the one thing that the doctor said in the original Captain America was that it enhances what you already are. Good becomes greater, bad becomes worse. And you really got a chance to see how dark John Walker can get. And that final scene after he's effectively killed that member of the Flag Smashers.
Well, that was hold on. Leading into that is because Battlestar had just
was killed. Yes,
Battlestar was captured. Basically, it was a way for Battlestar to be out of the picture for a few minutes. Battlestar frees himself, sees the conflict going on with all the Flag Smashers, and of course Falcon, Winter Soldier, and Captain America. So he goes in there, or I should say John Walker, because nobody likes saying Captain America when it comes to him. John Walker.
Just call him U.S. agent at this point. Just U.S. agent.
Well, he's actually listed in the credits since the beginning as U.S. agent. If nobody,
really,
if you go and look back at that from episode 1, he's actually listed as U.S. agent. But that's just the thing right there. But I will go ahead and say this: in the heat of the battle, Battlestar works himself free, gets in the middle of the battle, and unfortunately gets killed by Kari Morgenthau. And that,
incidentally, too, that was not on purpose.
No, it was not on purpose.
She was extremely. You could tell she was extremely like, oh crap, I didn't mean to do that. Like, that was not the intention whatsoever.
No, but unfortunately, when you have like you said, the triple S, there you go. But yeah, you saw it set him off, and how poignant and how full circle it comes to the guy he ends up killing with the shield. It was a former Captain America fanboy, and somebody who looked up to Captain America and talked about it earlier in the episode. I want to say this about the whole episode. You could see everything coming from 15 miles away. I mean, it was not discreet about it. It didn't give you any surprises or anything of that nature. You could see everything developing and everything going to be happening as it eventually unfolded. Right. But still, it was great entertainment nonetheless.
You know what? This was the strongest episode by far, and I'm sure it was by design. I mean, these guys at Marvel, they know what they're doing. They know to kind of give you a little bit and give you a little bit and give you a little bit and kind of continue to pull you in. This is definitely the strongest episode by far. This was the episode, as far as I'm concerned, that was like, okay, now the Falcon and Winter Soldiers must see television the moment it comes out. Like, it's
because you were on the fence. You were on the fence.
I was absolutely, and I hold no qualms about that. I enjoyed the direction that WandaVision took. It was just something different, and I felt like Falcon and Winter Soldier was a little bit more of the same thing. It was too buddy cop comedy for me. I'll talk about that in a little bit. It was very, very buddy copish, and it just was like, I almost felt like a lot of the jokes didn't land. It just felt like the relationship, as much fun as it was to watch in Civil War, it just didn't really seem to hit those same notes yet. However, this one was the absolute episode was like, okay, this is no
They're not
longer an
joking
option.
anymore.
This has to be watched on Friday the moment it drops, because this is must see television at this point. And I think that the fact that they kind of dropped the buddy comedy type thing, the buddy cop comedy for right now, and the story picked up. The story picked up quite a bit. You didn't have so many of these quiet beats and these little jokes that aren't landing, and it didn't feel forced. This was definitely the strongest episode, excuse me, by far. Not even close. Not even close. And I'm extremely interested to see how the world reacts to U.S. Agent at this point, because everybody was watching.
Yeah.
Everybody was watching. The entire world had their eyes fixated on what's happening in Madrid. Or was it? Were they weren't in Madrid?
No, they were in Europe. Remember,
They were back in Europe. Yeah,
they're back. I think it wasn't
They're back in
Germany.
Europe.
No, I'm not sure exactly where, but it was near. It was near where Baron Zemo had a flat. That's
Gotcha.
where,
All right. So, but wherever they were, the entire world was watching, and it's going to be very, very interesting to see how the world responds to Captain America or U.S. Agent or John Walker, whatever you feel like calling him at the moment, going so far as to take a life using the iconic shield. It very, 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 very reminiscent to the way Captain used the shield to dismember or disarm Tony Stark in the Civil War. However, the difference between Steve Rogers and John Walker is Steve Rogers has enough sense to just want to incapacitate his opponent, not necessarily kill him. And John Walker, for lack of a better term, doesn't have that same level of restraint, clearly. So, great episode, man. My wife and I were watching it, and we were just glued to it. We were like kind of stunned after the episode. We kind of had to just sit there and collect our thoughts for a moment, because it was really, it's really pretty intense. But it was a great episode. Just top notch from Marvel. I mean, the Mouse House just don't seem to miss, man. These guys know what they're doing. It's a little annoying that they're so good at what they do, because everything is it's a hit after hit after hit after hit with these guys. And you got to give him credit where credit's due. Kevin Feige knows how to craft a story. He knows how to interweave stories. The fact that we got to see the Winter Soldier be for a moment the Winter Soldier, and just in the way we got to see the knife fight, we got to go back to a little bit of that action beat that we got in Civil War and in the Winter Soldier, where we get to witness how good this guy really is. I mean, we knew that he still had the super soldier serum, but he's really been pretty docile in this series as of up until episode 4. Episode 4, he really cut up, boy. He acted a plumb fool. But what was awesome to see is you get to see the range that Sebastian Stan. I had it right. Okay. Yeah. SS. You got to see the range that he has. You get to see him truly be concerned and scared as she was recounting the words that would transform him back into the Winter Soldier, because he's scared. He doesn't want to go back to that place. He doesn't want to return to being that person. And you can see the fear, and you can see how there's elation when he's still him. And it's little stuff, it's things that aren't even said. The words really weren't, it wasn't a very, very big scene. It was just kind of like a flashback, but it was such a powerful moment that you get to see such character development. That's the beauty of having these little serialized shows, if you will, is they give you an opportunity to see more of the characters that you don't get to see on the big screen. So when you're going through a end game, you don't get to see those little bits with the Winter Soldier. But the Winter Soldier has such a rich history too, that these shows are allowing us to spend more time with these characters in a way that the big screen doesn't. So I'm very, very grateful. That was such an awesome thing that they did, an awesome flashback. And Sebastian Stan is just killing it right now. I can't wait to see where this goes from here. I'm excited.
I'm excited as well, although I was one of the ones who actually kind of enjoyed the flashback to the buddy comedies of the past. I know others are like you as far as it's concerned about how the jokes weren't always falling with you. They weren't always going ahead and being as amusing as you like. But the fact that it's taken a much serious turn, I've liked both parameters. I like when it was kind of light, and I also like the fact that they've taken a step back away from that buddy comedy type deal to create a much darker and more interesting picture with the MCU. Obviously, John Walker is heading towards the Thunderbolts. I mean, because that's something that they're going to be doing at some point in time. And we knew this. We already knew this was coming up. And there had to be a dark turn somewhere for John Walker along the way in order to go ahead. And this was definitely his major step into that realm. So it's something it's for him. It's a larger picture. For the MCU, it's a larger picture. So we're going to wait and see what happens. But episode 5 and episode 6, we're really entrenched now as far as what we're excited for exactly what's coming up in episode 5 and episode 6. Who is the power broker? I mean, I already proposed to you. I think my odds are on. It's my guess is Sharon. I don't know. It could be. Could not be. I mean, when you have satellites at your realm, you got to be a little bit powerful in order to do that. But yeah, that's one thing right there. But I will say this, that I'm excited for episode 5 and 6, and I know you are as well. But if anyone out there wants to go ahead and share their thoughts on Falcon and Winter Soldier, the big turn for John Walker, what's going on with the Flag Smashers? Are you sympathizing with them and their plight? We want to hear everything as far as your thoughts on Falcon and Winter Soldier, so please share it with us, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, coming up next, it is John Orlando from the PVD Cast talking about Night 1 of WrestleMania. Then right after that, it's Noe and Fine coming up for day 2 on WrestleMania. So we've got our complete WrestleMania coverage coming up for you next. And then after that, TJ and I will be on the back end talking about Star Trek and First Contact Day, what happened, and the future for the IP as well. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. And we're back to end the show. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. It's Gerald along with my good friend, Mr. TJ Johnson. TJ, recently, last week, Paramount Plus, I know if you still have it, or if anybody out there watches it, which is part of the problem, which we'll talk about here in a sec, they recently celebrated First Contact Day, which is the 25th anniversary of Star Trek First Contact, the movie, which is considered by many to be one of the best of the Star Trek movies that hit the theaters. And I agree with them. I think it's pretty good. I think it's one of the better ones. It's not my favorite, but it's probably in my top 5. I think the Star Trek reboot was brilliant. I love Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. I've made no bones about it. Wrath of Khan was just truly amazing for what it did at that time. But they announced a whole bunch of things, and they showed off some trailers. Star Trek Discovery Episode 4 showed a little bit of that. That's coming out later this year. Star Trek Lower Decks, their animated show, which I truly enjoyed and truly got into. That is something that I think a lot of people need to catch. They got an Episode 2 trailer, but the good news for them and fans out there is they got already renewed for Season 3, and Season 2 hasn't even debuted yet. So that's great news for them. They talked about Star Trek Strange New Worlds. That's the one that's coming later. They just started production on that. That's coming, I think, probably in early 2022 at this point in time. Then they also talked about Picard. The big news with Star Trek Picard is when Season 2 arrives, Q will be playing a bigger role in this series because they really centered around the arrival of Q. And if everybody remembers Q, the actor John Delancey's portrayal of Q, who is the omnipotent being that plagued Jean-Luc Picard and the crew of the Star Trek Next Generation for so many years on that series. So he'll be making a return, which I know a lot of people are enjoying when it comes to Star Trek Picard. They also talked about Star Trek Prodigy, which is a children's series that's going to be on Nickelodeon. That's going to feature Kate Mulgrew, who was, I think, in the Star Trek. Which Star Trek series? She was Captain Janeway.
Voyager.
Yeah, Star Trek Voyager. Yeah. Captain Janeway of Star Trek Voyager. I watched a couple seasons of that, so it was a pretty good show. So she's coming back for that in an animated form. And they also talked about the movie, which they've commissioned one of the Voyager writers, and her name is Kalinda Vasquez. She is going to be writing a movie, a Star Trek movie. She's been commissioned by Paramount to write a Star Trek movie. Is it going to be the one that's going to debut in the summer of 2023 as it's scheduled now? We're not quite sure. We think it is, but we're not 100% sure. And I know TJ's first question is, are they going to continue with the Kelvin timeline, which is has our current stars like aka Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, John Chu, Zoe Saldana, et cetera, nobody knows right now. I mean, we talked about a Chris Hemsworth possible deal, whether we went back in time to save him because he was Chris Pine's father, which is, it has all that Marvel thing that going on there, kind of weird. But they talked about that, and that got nixed. They talked about Quentin Tarantino's movie, and that looked like it was on the board. It was going to be an R-rated Star Trek, and people were really liking that. That got nixed by Paramount. So now we have supposedly another film coming to the big screen in 2023. I want to hear your thoughts on Star Trek. I mean, you're probably like me. I'm not a huge Trekkie. I'm a good Trekkie. I'm considered the Star Trek fan on the panel as far as the hosts are concerned. I am a good Star Trek fan. I'm not a great Star Trek fan. You saw my hesitation when it comes to remembering Discovery, and you got to remember Deep Space Nine, and you got to remember Enterprise, and you got to remember the whole 9 yards. Scott Bakula, will he come back at some point in time? He needs a job now that NCIS New Orleans is gone. But all the stuff that's gone on in the Star Trek universe. I want to ask your thoughts on the IP itself, where it stands. I mean, it's had some issues over the years, and the fact that it's on Paramount Plus, even though that's going to be a huge part of Paramount Plus, the problem is it's still all on Paramount Plus.
Yeah, so I think I'm falling into the same category with you, Gerald. I am not a huge Trekkie. I will admit that back in my day, you had to pick a side. You had to pick either Star Wars or Star Trek. You couldn't really be both. And I picked Star Wars. I mean, it has laser swords. It has galactic space battles. I mean, how could you not pick Star Wars? But with that being said, I will admit that some of the best sci-fi movies that I've watched were Star Trek ones. And I say that because the recent ones, the Kelvin timeline with Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, Zoe Saldana as Carl Urban, as Gerald mentioned earlier, as you mentioned, the very, very first, I was hooked from the first scene. The first scene where Chris Hemsworth's as the father of
one of the best openings of all time.
I mean, I put it right up there with the opening to Mass Effect 2.
Yeah.
It is easily one of the best openings of all time. I could watch that now and still not get weepy, but get like, God dog, man, that's deep. You were captain for a whole 10 minutes. And
people want to know how he got Thor. Check out that first 10 minutes of that's how he got Thor.
That's how he got it, man. The range he was able to show, the elation, the concern, the determination, the grit, all in 10 minutes. I learned everything I needed to learn about his character in 10 minutes. That was pretty well done. So with that being said, I became a huge fan of the Kelvin timeline. Everything about the Kelvin timeline is what I wanted to watch. So Star Trek, the first one, Star Trek Into Darkness. I can't think what the third Star Trek's
was it Star Trek? The third. See, that's the problem, though. But
that's the problem. That's the problem.
They've never been able to hit on the theaters to the extent of what their Star Wars movies are. Even though this past decade, I'll say the past 15 years, who has the better movies? Who has the better quality movies? And the problem is, you'd have to say Star Trek, but Star Trek, when it comes to Star Trek Into Darkness, Star Trek Beyond, which came out in 2016.
That's the one.
I mean, if you're able to match those up against the rebooted trilogy for Star Wars, you clearly say it was Star Trek on a quality basis, but who ends up with the dollars? Who ends up with the popularity? The thing is, there's been no Star Trek movie, I think, that's ever gained over $500 million worldwide. And that's a problem I have, that they're not able to connect with a large enough audience. So I want to hear your thoughts with this, and that's the Star Trek IP as a whole. They've done great on television. You see that broad base of shows that actually they got the jump on ahead of Star Wars and The Mandalorian, because Discovery has been a good hit for them. Even though it's never translated on broadcast television, it's been a huge hit for when it was CBS All Access. And then it's now migrated into Paramount Plus. And you see they now added Picard and Strange New Worlds and all these other shows in the Star Trek universe. It still has a place in our society and in our pop culture, but how big can it actually be?
The truth is, it has a place. And I think it's big that they're getting a show on Nickelodeon. I think that's going to be huge because what I really feel in my heart of hearts is that it just doesn't generate, it doesn't resonate with the younger audience. Again, it doesn't have lightsabers. It doesn't have a mystical force. It doesn't have any of that other Shakespearean theater, if you will, that Star Wars does possess. Star Wars has drama. I am your father. There's drama with Star Wars. There's incredible fighting. There's incredible swordmanship. Like there's so much of of things that the younger generation is going to dig into. As the older generation, we're going to enjoy the story. We're going to enjoy exploring strange new worlds. But when I think of Star Trek, I think it can't. I think it can't be William Shatner. I think of Beam Me Up, Scotty. Like those are the kind of things that remind me of Star Trek. And that's not to say that that's bad, but it just doesn't resonate with the younger generation. And I think the problem is because it doesn't resonate with the younger generation, it loses its relevancy. Now, them having a show coming on Nickelodeon, I think it's going to be a big deal. But I think the IP in itself is just much more geared towards an older audience. And I think the sooner they realize that, and the sooner they kind of change what their expectations are for that IP, I think the better off they're going to be. Truth be told, you're not catching Star Wars. There's no way. You're not. It's too popular. Even when they don't hit, they hit. Like there's just no catching Star Wars train.
Like for instance, the Last Skywalker,
Yeah,
movie.
yeah.
That movie was terrible.
The
movie
by all intents and purposes.
But it still made $1 billion worldwide at the box office. Now, mind you, that's 50% of what The Force Awakens made, but that's still $1 billion, which is something that, which is still 50% above what any Star Trek movie has ever made worldwide. So, for all the intents and purposes, that Star Trek is, critically better. As far as from a movie standpoint, they would love the kind of world acceptance that Star Wars seems to have. I mean, as far as the shows are concerned, yeah, they're deep, they're insightful, they have a lot of drama, but you have to know what's going on within the realm of the Star Trek universe to get in with it.
Exactly.
Star Wars is a little bit more cut and dry, and you're right about reaching a new audience. I mean, this is something Josh and I have talked about where we weren't sure that it was still resonating with a younger audience. And the fact is, okay, you've got us at this age. Exactly. You've already got us. You need to get TJ, your kids. You need to get my kids involved and invested in it. So that's should be the goal for Disney each and every time out. And I think they've done that with The Mandalorian and obviously the tie-in with Grogu, aka Baby Yoda. That's how they're able to go ahead and resonate. I mean, I go by Costco, which you are very familiar with, and there's that area where they've got the big, huge plushies from the different Disney characters. And what is everybody? I go by there every time. There's only a few left each and every time out. And what are all the ladies who are all there trying to go ahead and dig through for? They're all digging through for Baby Yoda. And the thing is, and this does not happen just once. This has happened 4 times. I've been there. And the thing is that they've actually caught on to something that has resonated with a younger audience so that they, in future generations, will still appreciate the Star Wars IP. We haven't seen that yet from Star Trek.
No. And again, I just don't think it's just not designed that way. I mean, again, I hate to keep beating on the same horse, but they have laser swords. Like, what kid doesn't want to play with a laser sword? They are by design headed towards our younger generation because that's fun. And then you already hooked the older generation because now we're watching this stuff on Disney Plus and we get the little Easter eggs that we have with Luke Skywalker coming out down the hallway, and you already have us as the older generation hooked. So as you alluded to, now you have to get the younger generation. And how does Star Wars get the younger generation? By introducing a cute Baby Yoda. It's still introducing lightsabers and still having these space galactic battles and air and TIE fighters and Battlefront games. And they're still appealing to a younger audience. And I just, while I appreciate that Star Trek is trying to branch out now and trying to get on getting on Nickelodeon and having all the different iterations of Star Trek, it still feels like my dad's show.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like my show. It feels like my dad's show. And that's what's going to hinder it from continuing to grow direction that they want to grow, is that really it's just by design not as fun as Star Wars.
No, you're right. It is. It's a lot heavier. It's usually a lot darker. Even with the light and fun, campy Star Trek movie, that reboot that came out in 2008, I mean, that has done somewhat of it, and I really like the fact that they are showing that side of it. If you go to the television shows, like for instance, Discovery is always darker. It's always a lot moodier, and it's something that a younger audience would probably not be able to appreciate. But you have the Mandalorian with Grogu, cuting it up all the time. That's why I like what you said about the Prodigy show, Star Trek Prodigy going to Nickelodeon being a key for their future going forward, because I really see it as something, because the Lower Decks is animated, but it's adult animated, so you really can't show the kids that. But the Star Trek Prodigy, I think, could be a serious key for their future.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a saying that the children are the future. Well, that means you need to get to them. You need to get to them young. And right now, you got to catch them at the young stages, because as they grow, they're going to be their attention span is going to be pulled to things that are really cool. And lightsabers will always be cool. I've always wanted a lightsaber since I can remember a lightsaber, and I will always want a lightsaber till the day I die. So lightsabers will always be cool, always. Photon guns, and that's pretty standard sci-fi stuff at this point. So
yeah,
it's just not really sticking out.
Well, set your phasers on stun and beam me up. But I will ask you this, everyone out there, what are your thoughts on the Star Trek brand at this point in time? I mean, it's something I like to check in year after year, because I still am a good fan of Star Trek. I'm not a Trekkie per se, but I am still a good fan of Star Trek. And I want to know if you are interested in the world or the universe of Star Trek moving forward. Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, I want to thank so much Noah Ian Fine and John Orlando from the PVD Cast, and Noah Ian Fine from Honey Queen for stopping by in today's show, but also a huge thank you to you, TJ, for being on at such short notice. Also want to send our get well wishes and our get well wishes to Thomas Bennett, and also as well a special prayer out there to my good friend Josh Peterson, hoping he'll come back with us as soon as he can. But my friend, it's been a fabulous episode. Again, I cannot thank you enough for joining me on short notice. Any last thoughts on the way out?
You ask this every time, and every time I'm never prepared. But
I know, that's the thing. I do that to I do that to Josh. I do that to Marcus. I do that to all the hosts.
Oh my goodness, you turkey. Final thoughts, sir. You know what? There's a lot going on. Just make sure that you're taking the time to love yourself. Take the time to love yourself. It's okay. You can press pause on a podcast. You can press pause on a movie. You can press pause in a video game, but you can't press pause in life at times. So it's really important that you stop when you can. Take a moment, recollect. It's okay to stay home every now and then. It's okay to say, you know what, not tonight. I just need some me time. Just make sure you're taking care of yourself. That's important.
Sounds good to me. Well, my friend, it's been great having you on the show once again. I'm looking forward to next week with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. There's so much more coming up in the world of pop culture, and I hope everyone gets a chance to follow us right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. So for TJ Johnson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the Pop Culture Cosmos. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great